All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm honored and very grateful to have with us now Andrea Bonamy-Blanc. Andrea is a really fun person, but she's also the founder and CEO of GEC Risk Advisory, Strategic Governance, Risk, ESG, Ethics, and Cyber Advisor to businesses, NGOs, and government. She is a former senior global executive at Bertelsmann, Verint, and PSEG, and she serves on several boards and advisory boards, including WireX, Athena Alliance, Cyber Future Foundation, and NACD of the New Jersey chapter. She is the independent ethics and advisor to the Financial Oversight and Management Board for Puerto Rico. I know Marianne's shouting out back somewhere. She's also the independent ESG and integrity advisor to the Platform for Social Impact and a life member of the Council on Foreign Relations. In 2022, Andrea was named to NACD Directorship 100 by the National Association of Corporate Directors. She's NACD Governance Leadership Fellow, holds the Carnegie Mellon Cyber Oversight Certificate, and serves as faculty at NYU's Center for Global Affairs, MS in National Security and Cybersecurity program. She has received numerous awards and recognitions over the years, including the 2018 inaugural Director and Chief Risk Officers, DCRO, if folks know that acronym, Exemplar Award, and Ethisphere's 100 Most Influential People in Business Ethics in 2014 and 2015. Andrea is a sought-after global keynote speaker. She's also a visiting professor at several international universities, and she's the author of many articles and several books, most recently Gloom to Boom, How Leaders Transform Risk into Resilience and Value. I have to say that Andrea is also my personal hero. I've gotten to meet her in real life. But most recently, she spent over 4 hours troubleshooting her headset and has a new Oculus on her today just for this occasion. So she is diving deep into what the metaverse holds and looking forward to hearing what that also means from a governance and corporate governing perspective. So without further ado, Andrea, welcome. Thank you for making time for us. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's an absolute joy to be here. And thank you so much, Kavya. It's really great to be with everyone. I've learned so much over the last few days, even though I haven't had a chance to listen to everything, but I look forward to that. Basically, I'm a person who comes from the governance, ethics, and risk management world. And I have a real interest in the future and what new technology holds for us, both good, bad, and ugly. And so I specialize in helping corporations, especially, but also NGOs and government agencies to think about the future from a governance, ethics, and risk management lens, and also with a view to really understanding the opportunity in doing things the right way, helping your stakeholders, representing their interests, not harming them, et cetera. So let me start with my first slide. I have a few slides. I'm notorious for having too many slides, but hopefully you will get something out of it, and then happy to share them also. So the title of this presentation is The Metaverse in the Business World. Corporations are governing in a vacuum. And I think that's really true. But I would add another question, or are they really governing at all? And I think that's the real issue here. And we've heard a swath of very important opinions and data points over the last few days. So if we go to the next slide, I want to give you a sense of where I'm coming from. So one thing that I do, it's based on my book, Gloom to Boom, where I looked at mega trends that really inform how we do things in this world. I've started doing an annual update to those mega trends. So in this last edition, which is 2022-2023, always looking forward, I look at 5 mega trends that are multi-year events that are taking place around the world, affecting all of us in some way or another. And in those 5 mega trends, I have one called Tech Disruption Becoming Multi-Dimensional. And where better a place than to talk about the multidimensional disruption than in the metaverse itself. So as Christina said, I did troubleshoot my Oculus for a few hours, and the team here was absolutely wonderful in helping me. And I feel like if I'm going to talk about these things, I have to understand them personally. I can't just talk about the metaverse as if I knew what it was if I hadn't been in it or hadn't understood what it is about. So the 5 mega trends talk about some of the very big things that are happening. Political tectonic shifts, catalyzing is one of them. And I've heard a few people talking about how geopolitics really has an impact on this whole technology revolution that we're going through. The second one is called Climate and War Propelling Complex Risk. And I have this theory that we're in a world of rising interconnected complex risk, technology being one really important mover of that and also contributor as well as part of it. Then the third one is this technology disruption becoming multidimensional, by which I mean that we're going into many different dimensions that are beyond the physical real world, if you want to call it real. We have the crypto world, we have the nanotechnology world, we have now a fusion reaction, according to some scientists. And we have, of course, the metaverse, and we have AI and everything else that goes with it. So there's a lot of dimensions of tech that need governance, ethics, they need risk management, but they also embed incredible opportunities. So to me, that's really the message I'm trying to convey, mostly to organizations which I work with, or people who I collaborate with. The fourth megatrend is about how stakeholder capitalism and ESG are intertwining. And this is very important as well, because we're living through a transformation in capitalism where the stakeholders are becoming as important as the shareholders, the employees, the customers, the children in the metaverse. There are stakeholders. We need to understand who they are. We need to understand how to treat them. And then my last one is about leadership and institutional trust. Last year I called it plummeting. This year I'm calling it recalibrating, because I think we're starting to see green shoots of better leadership in government, in corporations, in NGOs, and media may be lagging a little bit behind. But I think there's an enormous opportunity, especially for business, to set a tone here and to devote the resources and do the self-governance that is so important. I come from the world of ethics and compliance, where 30 years ago, we started creating our own voluntary codes of conduct, policies, programs, training, self-auditing, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is something that I really believe has to happen in the new technologies as well. And I like this phrase, I didn't put it on a slide, but what's old is new and what's new is old. I think we have to combine some of the really important things that are true and tried with adapting to these changes that are really revolutionary, as many people have discussed already this week. The whole biological piece, the neurological piece, we've never had to really think as deeply about those things as we do today. So let's go to the next slide, please. And so, in summary, in terms of this technology disruption becoming multidimensional, I wrote about this actually about 8 months ago when this was published, and I talked about the danger and the risk of this. So for example, I made a little joke at the beginning of my segment in this manual, where I said that what happens in the metaverse will not stay in the metaverse, and that's both good and bad. And I have a few headlines that I'm sure many of you have seen already of the things that can happen in the metaverse. And it's really just a reflection of the real world. It's the same human beings, doing both good, bad, and ugly things in the metaverse, but it might be in a new way. But I think the constant here is that human beings, unfortunately, there are some who want to do harm and some who want to do ill. And, you don't want to be hobnobbing with oligarchs, criminals, and fraudsters in the metaverse. You want to be able to be protected from that. And of course, much worse when it comes to children, vulnerable people. You don't want them to be affected adversely by the wrong kind of people in the metaverse. But then there's this enormous promise and opportunity in this multidimensional technological world. And I think it behooves all of us to get these governance, ethics, risk management, impact issues really under control and influence them. And the regulators will do it too, but the regulators are always behind. And I think the people who are involved are best equipped to really understand how to create these safeguards, create these codes of conduct, and then the regulators will come in at some point too and enforce things. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is just a few of the multidimensional risks and opportunities that we can all find in this multidimensional tech disruption world. You have the robotic military photograph there. The robotic military is, on the one hand, a good thing in the sense that maybe we have fewer people dying, but a robotic military out of control is going to be something really horrific that we're starting to see little bits and pieces of it in Ukraine in the war with the drones and what have you. Biometrics continues to be a very important and serious issue, but it also helps in many ways. Web 3.0 is going to revolutionize the internet as we know it, but there are also a lot of downsides. We've just seen the downsides of crypto imploding. We have the photo there of Mark Zuckerberg with his headset, which is, you know, the promise and the peril of the metaverse, and then of course robots taking over. So again, this is just a very quick representation of both the risk and the opportunity that we have. And I think embedded in the opportunity piece is really influencing how boards look at these issues, how executive management looks at informing them, training them, educating them, and all of the people within organizations that are creating these new tools, new programs, new software, et cetera, that they are interconnected with ethicists, with sociologists, with neurologists, with people who understand the impact or can at least work in real time to understand the impact of the new technologies on the brain and on people and on psychology, et cetera. So let's go to the next one, please. And here I just did a little quick conversation with ChatGPT to ask ChatGPT what it thought was corporate tech governance. And all told, it got it pretty much on the money in terms of defining what tech governance is from the corporate setting. And I'll leave you all to read the details, but it's a pretty generic and vanilla kind of definition of what it is. But it talks about technology governance being in line, being the process by which organizations manage and control development, deployment, and use of technology in order to achieve their strategic goals and objectives, et cetera, et cetera. So you can look that up, and you can even have a little chat with ChatGPT if you want to see what they think. Obviously, this goes with all kinds of disclaimers. This is an AI that's being tested, an LLP that is quite revolutionary and amazing, but it's also quite limited. So both the risk and the opportunity is embedded in this in terms of defining and understanding what tech governance is. So let's go to the next slide, please, where I asked ChatGPT what could go wrong in the metaverse from a governance standpoint. And they basically nailed it again. Lack of proper control and clear regulations and guidelines. Some other things that I can't see right now because my headset isn't giving me a crisp look at the slide. But basically, it talks about a lot of the things that we have talked about here this past week in terms of invasion of privacy, use of data, the improper and inadequate safeguards for people, the lack of rules and enforcement. So these are all things that can go wrong and things that can harm people and things that we need to work with to improve both in the real part of the world and inside the metaverse. So let's keep going with the next slide, please. So I have a few slides now that talk about what could go wrong, and then I have the optimistic and the more opportunity-oriented things. And I'm sure nobody has missed this story since it's one of the most dominant stories in the media right now. The whole Twitter going private, being owned by one person who does not have a board of directors, which is almost unheard of in a semi-sophisticated company. To not have a board of directors is really one of the biggest red flags ever. So that's lack of governance right there. On top of that, this particular story where Twitter just dissolved its Trust and Safety Council is another huge red flag, especially given Twitter's history of not doing a great job of content moderation, but doing their best under the circumstances. Third big red flag in this story is the way that the head of trust and safety has been basically not only persecuted by the new owner of Twitter, but also bots and hateful, people who basically want to be hateful online have chased him down as well, including physically to his home. So these are things that apply, I think, to many of our new dimensions of tech. And this is really what could go wrong in a very serious way, and can hurt people physically as well as emotionally. So let's go to the next ugly story, or risk gone wrong. This is a series of emotions that were experienced by people when they were cyber intruded. And I do a lot of work in the cybersphere in terms of governance and risk management and leadership and resilience building. And here you have a very interesting report. This was reported, I believe, by I can't see the name. It's one of the big cyber companies, and also part of a World Economic Forum a global risks report of this last year. These are the emotions experienced after detecting unauthorized access. So again, this connects the tech disruption, the cyber world, with human emotions. And 52% of the people who experienced this unauthorized access felt angry. 46% felt stressed. 41% felt vulnerable. 4% felt, I can't see it, but you get the picture. There are a number of very serious emotions and impacts on human beings when they feel that their space has been attacked, made vulnerable, their privacy invaded, or their information stolen. And the very same thing can happen, of course, in the metaverse, and maybe in ways that we haven't experienced yet in the pure cyber space. So let's go to the next slide, please. Here's a series of headlines that I actually collected when I was writing my Megatrends report for this year, just referred to the metaverse. And I did say in the booklet that happens in the metaverse won't stay in the metaverse, and it won't. And I think it's important that it doesn't, because we need to find ways to protect people and their data and their well-being. And so here you have a variety of ugly headlines. Metaverse app allows kids into virtual strip clubs. Woman says she was gang raped in Facebook's metaverse. How will Facebook keep its metaverse safe for users, was a question the Financial Times asked. Come the metaverse, can privacy exist? Very, very critical question. Metaverse is everything you hate about the internet strapped to your face. That's a pretty harsh statement, but maybe it is. And why the hell are people getting married in the metaverse? This is a little funnier. And then we have the funniest one. High rapper Snoop Dogg wants to grow weed in the metaverse. So we have all kinds of things happening in the metaverse, some of them dangerous, some of them silly, some of them funny. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's another aspect of technology disruption, being very intrusive and or things that we don't know are going on. And I just heard a few of the panelists talking about how we don't have the ability to really know who knows what about us, our eye movements, our biometrics that are going through these, goggles, headsets. So there's all kinds of things being collected. We don't really know where it's going, what it's going to be used for, et cetera. Well, here's a story that's kind of similar, but a little bit different, which is this whole scandal that happened this past year with an Israeli company that was basically selling software that allowed the buyer to snoop on the phones of very famous people, very important people, powerful people, and maybe just normal people. But this is another, surveillance nightmare that we think we're going to have to deal with, certainly in the foreseeable future. And again, it has aspects of some of the things that we're facing, I think, in the metaverse. Next slide, please. So this is yet another angle. Sounds good. Thank you. Just close that. This is yet another angle that has a real sort of impact on the metaverse as well. And this is a slide, a series of data that's been collected and a graphic created by Domo that shows what happens in social media every 60 seconds of every day. So every minute of every day, we have 575,000 tweets on Twitter. We have 167 million TikToks. We have 4 million posts on Facebook. We have 694,000 hours uploaded to YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Now, just think about this in terms of just the information overload. Obviously, that is just exploding all over the world through social media. But then let's go to the next slide, and I just want to show where this becomes a really serious problem. And again, there are issues, risks, opportunities that are going to overflow or be part of the metaverse as well. And that's this whole world of disinformation, misinformation, and what some people are also calling malinformation. The difference between misinformation and the other two is that the other two, there's intent to harm with disinformation or malinformation. So when you put together what happens every 60 seconds on social media with this little sort of explanation of intent to harm versus just negligent information sharing or disinformation sharing, we again have a whole explosion of issues that we need to manage as people, as humans, as family members, as friends, and as workers in our companies or our businesses or our governments. So again, this is another major burden, a governance issue, an ethics issue, a risk management issue we all need to be familiar with. Next slide, please. Let me talk about the good stuff now as I conclude, because I think it's really, really important to always think about risk and opportunity as two sides of the same coin, as this little coin of Janus, the god from mythology, shows. So let's go to the next slide, please. And what I want to show you here is a piece that I just co-wrote with a friend of mine who's a big crypto expert. And we wrote a piece for a chapter called Sustainability, Technology, and Finance. And our thesis was that with environmental, social, governance, and technology issues, I coined the phrase ESG plus T in my book, and continue to do that because I think we miss a lot of really important stuff when we don't bring in technology in the ESG discussion. We basically said that with exponential technology, we need to have exponential responsibility, and that applies to every single company. I don't care if they are technology companies or users of technology, incorporators, integrators of technology, users of software. Everybody really needs to up their game on corporate responsibility in the use and the development of technology. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here are a few things that I put in an article that I wrote recently about how we can start developing some of this success, future tech success. And I think it really depends heavily on several things. One is developing responsible governance. It starts with the board of directors and it goes all the way infused throughout the organization. It's the responsibility of management to do this. It's also about integrating ethics into everything you do. And so you have a lot of companies that have already started doing some really good things, integrating AI as ethics into their AI journey. We have to keep doing that on every kind of tech journey. Intelligent risk management and intelligent risk and disinformation risk management. Again, going back to some of the things I shared before. And then finally, sustainable impact. All of this has to be done with a view to stakeholders. Who are your most important stakeholders? What is their expectation of you? How will you impact them negatively or positively? And move the needle towards the positive side as best possible. Next slide, please. The Sustainable Development Goals, there's a lot of great work being done from the UN standpoint with digital technology. I encourage everybody to think about that. Let me keep moving so we can get to some Q&A time. Next slide, thank you. This is a finding from Edelman Trust Barometer from this past year. And the most important finding when it came to disinformation issues is that information quality is the most powerful trust builder across all 4 institutions that they look at. That's government, media, NGOs, and business. And so the stakeholders that they interviewed all over the world about this said, you provide information quality, we are going to trust you. So I think there's a kernel of really important truth there. Next slide, please. This is just an example of business getting involved with hopefully integrating ethics and governance and risk management into AI. So this is the Business Roundtable's 2022 roadmap of 10 core principles. So again, a positive development as long as it's being done and not just talked about. Next slide, please. AI principles from Microsoft. I'm sure all of you know about this, so I don't need to indulge, but this is an example of a company bringing these issues into their own fold. The Business Roundtable is a large, the largest 200 companies in the country. They adopted those AI principles. Microsoft adopted their own, and so on and so forth. This is what needs to happen at the organizational level. Next slide, please. And this is what happens when companies are paying attention to their stakeholders. This is Just Capital. If you're not familiar with them, they're fabulous. They're an NGO that looks at the top 1,000 publicly traded companies in the US, and they look at them from 5 different stakeholders' perspective and analyze their performance. And you can see the top 10 for this year, most of them technology companies. Doesn't mean they're all great. It just means that they're doing at least a better job than some with looking at stakeholders' issues. We're talking about customers, employees, shareholders, and others. So this is really important. And I think competition in the business arena, to look like you're the best and not just but be the best, is really important. Next slide, please. And this is my last question to ChatGPT, where I said, what is the future of governance? And of course, the future of governance is difficult to predict with certainty, and it will depend on many factors, including the development of new technologies, the evolution of global political and economic systems, and the actions of individuals and organizations. It goes on. They have a similar answer to some other future questions that I posed to them. So I would say it's a little bit generic, but I think the future of governance of technology is up to each and every one of us. And I think what Kavya and her team and Christina and everybody involved with this is doing is phenomenal and super important, and something that keeps us between the cliff and the abyss, because there is a lot of not so great stuff going on out there. So next slide, please. This is my final slide, which is basically a call to action. Basically, leaders in companies, boards, the C-suite, the executive management, all of you who work in technology, do the disciplinary collaboration with other types of people. I'm a poli-sci major who became a lawyer, and I'm totally into this stuff and want to contribute what I can. I think everybody has something to contribute. This is a multidimensional, multidisciplinary field that requires all of us to contribute. It's really delightful and fantastic to see the diversity of voices and people in this conference. And I think I'm running out of time, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
We are actually at time, so if I can actually ask you to stick around, Andrea. We do have a break coming up in a few minutes. Maybe you can stick around in the audience, and I'm sure there will be ample questions and folks who want to shake your hand. So let's go ahead and play our video, after which we will take a 15-minute break.
Terrific. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.